Hello, how's it going, everybody? Give me 1 second. I'm seeing a little gray square around it. Did that help? That helped. Okay, so today we're jumping into Ezekiel chapter 47. Let me just make sure we're not lagging or anything over here. Do. Let's see. Yeah, we are. Okay, let me fix that real quick and then we can get started. Okay, let's see. Let's see how it is now. Perfect. Let's get the text up. Okay. All right, we're good to go. All right, so we're finishing up Ezekiel today. Ezekiel 47 to 48, and boom, we're done. So these last 8 or so chapters have been about 8 or 9 chapters. Yeah, 9 have been about this vision that Ezekiel got from God regarding a new temple dubbed Ezekiel's temple. And according to my Bible and according to some other sources that we looked at, it never came to fruition. As we continue to read the Bible, we'll find out for ourselves. But we've been discussing that, like and we've been seeing in a lot of these commentaries. Apparently, this is one of the toughest questions in the Bible, because why would God give Ezekiel all of these plans, these detailed plans with measurements and everything? Ezekiel had this vision where he was in the temple and he's with this guy who had a measuring rod and everything, and they were measuring everything. And he was giving the plans, and then this is what we're going to be using this for here, the sacrificial ceremonies, the rituals, the whole procession and everything, how it's supposed to go. This is what these compartments are going to be used for and everything, just like the plans we got for the tabernacle, just like the plans we got for Solomon's temple. Yet, apparently, this was never made use of. So, the question comes, why did God give these plans to Ezekiel? What was the purpose? Some say it is symbolic, metaphorical. Some say that it's a prophecy that just wasn't fulfilled. Some say that it is Ezekiel recalling Solomon's temple. Others say that it is a temple to be built during the millennial reign of Christ. And each one of those can have pretty strong counter-arguments. So it's tough. What is the answer? I don't know. I put a poll up to see what you guys think. So answer that for me, and so you can and we can have a little discussion in the comment section. But without further ado, let's continue on. 47 is entitled "The Healing Waters and Trees." That just sounds interesting to me, just from that subheading. So let's get into this. Make sure the volume is on. Okay, let's get started here.
Then he brought me back to the door of the temple, and there was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the front of the temple faced east. The water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar. He brought me out by way of the north gate.
Let me pull up a, let me back it up. We can back it up, and then I'll pull up a picture.
Flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the front of the temple faced east. The water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar.
So the water flowing under the threshold of the temple towards the east, for for the front of the temple faced the east. So it's flowing towards the temple. Do we have like a picture that has the water? I mean, it's just going to probably show a river. See, some people dub it the Millennial Temple. I'm guessing this might be what it's... Ezekiel's temple. This is the east, I'm assuming, the front. What does it say? Represents water from his side. The river of life. Ezekiel's temple represents the crucifixion. This is interesting. South entrance entry here, you must exit the opposite side. Forms Jacob's ladder. North exit represents path to heaven. This is the Mount of Olives. Split forms a seventh gate complete in the cross. Represents the water on his side. The river of life. Pierced. Path of the Israelites. 30 storage houses, 30 pieces of silver. So whoever drew this is trying to find some symbolism, some connection to the crucifixion in Ezekiel's temple, because everybody's trying to make sense of Ezekiel's temple. Because some of the interpretations are maybe it's the Ezekiel's temple. All of this is just symbolic, but there's too many details with the measurements. Like here, he made use of the 30 storehouses, but we go into great detail with the measurements. We're just hoping we get a picture of. Oh, here we go with the water. The water of life, and the trees of life. This is sounding like it could be symbolic, you know? This is a nice picture. I'm going to put this in the description for you guys to look at.
He brought me out by way of the north gate and led me around on the outside to the outer gateway that faces east. And there was water running out on the right side. And when the man went out to the east with the line in his hand, he measured 1,000 cubits. Side
See, like 1,000
to the outer
cubits.
gateway that faces east.
So then he brought me back to the temple door of the temple, and there. Okay, so he's inside the temple. He comes out. He's facing east, and it's on the right side. So he's facing this way. So it would be on his right.
And there was water running out on the right side. And when the man went out to the east with the line in his hand, he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters. The water came up to my ankles. Again, he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters. The water came up to my knees. Again, he measured 1,000 and brought me through. The water came up to my waist. Again, he measured 1,000.
So are they going through the river 1,000? Is that what's happening?
And it was a river that I could not cross, for the water was too deep. Water in which one must swim. A river that could not be crossed. He said to me,
Son of man, have you seen this?
Then he brought me and returned me to the bank of the river, When I returned, there along the bank of the river were very many trees on one side and the other.
This water flows toward the eastern region, goes down into the valley and enters the sea. When it reaches the sea, its waters are healed. And it shall be that every living thing that moves, wherever the rivers go, will live. There will be a very great multitude of fish.
So literally
because
healing
these
waters
go there. For they will, and it shall be that every living thing that moves, wherever the rivers go, will live. There will be a very great multitude
the
of
river
fish
of youth,
because
the fountain
these
of youth.
waters go there. For they will be healed, and everything will live wherever the river goes.
Okay, so see here, I can understand where people are saying, okay, no, we're just talking symbolically. But what would the symbolic meaning of this be? This guy was saying, oh, I backed out of that, didn't I? Let me duplicate this. Take that back. This guy was saying that it represents the water from his side. Like, okay. So you know when Jesus was pierced in his side and the water came out, that's why it was coming from the side. Which side was Jesus pierced? Was it on the right side? Since it was a preparation, and since it was a day of preparation, But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs, but one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once there came out blood and water. So we don't know a side. Here we were like, if it if it specifically said which side, and it was the same side as this, I would be like, okay, well, okay, you may have a point here. You may be on to something. I don't know. But who knows? Maybe it was Jesus was pierced on the right side, and then this is a cool idea. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it's interesting to think about. Right, Jesus is the life and the way. The way and the life, is that what, right? What does Jesus say? The truth and the life. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And those who follow him will not die, will be healed. Well, this is flowing into the temple. You're flowing into the temple. I see, that's what I'm saying. I can see the symbolic imagery in this section, but what about all the going over how we do the offerings, the different sacrifices, the laws governing the priests? What about all that? The dimensions of the altar, of all the different chambers, of the walls of the sanctuary? What about all that? That will take a lot of further studying. Maybe there is some symbolism, but there's so much detail there. It would be, for that to all coincide with ulterior meanings, other meanings, to create this sense of symbolism, that's kind of odd. Because if this is symbolic right here, I can understand that this could be symbolic, but the rest, like the measurements, if you have an overwhelming part of the information that is so detailed, that would distract from the symbolic meaning, you know? So then it comes to, was the symbolism intended? Was it not intended? What was the intention here? If the intention If you're focusing on something else that's not the intention, why are you focusing on it? Maybe what you're focusing on is the intention because you're focusing on it. And it seems like the focus was in a physical building because we got the whole layout, you know? We're only now coming to stuff that seems like it could be symbolic. Versus what this guy's saying, where is it? See, he didn't. I don't see him making him talking about any symbolism regarding the measurements of the places and the whole layout and everything. Like here, the 30 pieces, 30 storehouses. Okay, but there was so much other detail in here that I don't see how it can what could it symbolize? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It will need a lot of further studying if we're going to go the symbolic route. We're gonna have to look at the numbers and find out. Or maybe it could be just a test from God to saying, hey, don't focus on the minute details. Take a step back and look at the big picture here. Because that's how Jesus is. He takes a step back and he looks at the big picture. But then why would God be the one to provide the details? Well, he wasn't really, right? Because God brought Ezekiel to that figure, that bronze figure with the rod and whatnot, the measuring rod. And he was going in there and measuring with Ezekiel. What do you guys think about this? This is really interesting. I can completely understand why people say that this is one of the most difficult areas in the Bible because it's up to interpretation. There's so many interpretations here that you could have. But obviously there's only one correct way to view it, whatever God intended, and I'm curious what God intended. But maybe because it's hard to understand that his intention was for us to look at the bigger picture here, and that seems to be tying in with this section. But you wouldn't have gotten the bigger picture if you were reading the previous chapters we've been reading. So it's interesting why we waited up until now to get into the metaphorical sounding bits. But let's keep going.
Its waters are healed. And it shall be that every living thing that moves, wherever the rivers go, will live. There will be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters go there, for they will be healed, and everything will live wherever the river goes. It shall be that fishermen will stand by it from En-gedi to En-eglaim. They will be places for spreading their nets. Their fish will be of the same kinds as the fish of the great sea, exceedingly many. But its swamps and marshes will not be healed. They will be given over to salt. Along the bank of the river, on this side and that, will grow all kinds of trees used for food. Their leaves will not wither, and their fruit will not fail. They will bear fruit every month, because their water flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for medicine.
Okay. That sounds symbolic to me. But its swamps and marshes will not be healed. They will be given over to salt. So everything will die in the swamps and marshes. And along the riverbank on this side and that will grow all kinds of trees. Okay, let me look at my Bible. See what my Bible's got to say about this. 47. 10. The water becomes a river of healing and the source of abundant life for everything and everyone. It continues to flow southeast through the dry, rocky region between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea, that is, the Arabah, or the eastern region, and south along the Jordan Valley and the Jordan Rift. as far as to the Dead Sea. When it reaches the sea, the Dead Sea, the salty sea becomes fresh and able to sustain life so that fishermen can fish there. Its waters are healed. This is an amazing picture. The Dead Sea is the saltiest body of water, approximately 25% saline content, and is presently unable to support life. It is also, okay, so then we can be talking about how, hey, this is yet to come to pass during the millennial reign or some other time in the future, because, it's still extremely salty there. And according to this, there should be plenty of fish. So that means it hasn't happened yet. If we want to take it literally as we're talking about the future. It is presently unable to support life. It is also the lowest point on Earth, with its surface 1,300 feet below sea level and the water itself 1,300 feet deep. The living water that God will provide has immeasurable power to renew, restore, and resurrect life. This sea, which is dead, will teem with life all along its shores, from En-Gedi to Eglaim. Great volumes and variety of vegetation, everlasting and perpetually productive, will result from this river which flows from the sanctuary. See John chapter 7 for Jesus' use of the image of living waters from the life that he gives to those who believe in him. Yeah. So you could look at it as, hey, this is foreshadowing Jesus, or Jesus could be just citing this. It's interesting. I'm going to look up a commentary about this. $47, not $37. There was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple, led back. Okay, let me just read it. Led back to the door of the temple, presumably by the radiant man of Ezekiel 40. Ezekiel saw something that never existed in the temple before: a river flowing from the temple. I thought it was into the temple. Flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east. Okay, so it was flowing away. Okay, I don't know why I thought it was flowing into the temple. It's flowing from the temple. Ezekiel uses this imagery to affirm that the new temple, like the old, will be a font of blessing for Israel. Significantly, the river does not come from a king's palace or a government building. It doesn't come from a marketplace, a place of business, or an athletic arena. It comes from God's house. So all these blessings are going to permeate through all the peoples. It's going to bless the area, and it's coming from the temple, from God. There was water running out on the right side. In all of its recorded history, Jerusalem never had such a river. There were streams and springs, but never such a mighty river, and never one flowing from this part of the city. In the semi-arid geography of Israel, a river like this was both a blessing and a miracle. It brought life, growth, vitality, refreshment, hope, and security. Mind you, this website, while it did list the different potential interpretations of Ezekiel chapter 40 to 48, it sided with the millennial idea. So it probably will take a more literal approach to what is being said because it thinks that it will be fulfilled in the future. Keep that in mind as we're reading, right? You don't want to blindly believe someone else's opinion also. Blessing, fertility, and water are almost interchangeable ideas in the Old Testament. We think of the beauty of Psalm 46:4 There is a river whose stream shall make glad the city of God. Jerusalem is the only great city of the ancient world that wasn't located on a river. And in the East, a dependable water supply is essential for life and for defense. During the Kingdom Age, Jerusalem shall have a river such as no other nation ever had. The Kingdom Age, Jesus' millennial kingdom. Running out on the right side, the waters seem to have been at first in small quantity, for the words imply they oozed or dropped out. This is why we need to understand the original text so we can find that out for ourselves. Like the true meaning, what these words really mean. They were at first so small that they came drop by drop, but they increased. We have reminders that flowing streams are parables of the flowing life of God. Trapp gave a typical spiritualized explanation of this river, the gospel of grace and the gifts of the Holy Ghost thereby conveyed into the hearts of believers and poured out upon the world by the death of Christ. Here we go with the symbolic meaning. Though such a river has symbolic meaning, we should not miss the plain promises of such a river in the coming kingdom of the Messiah. Well, I don't know if it's a plain promise because there's many interpretations and there's good rebuttals for each interpretation. A fountain shall flow from the house of the Lord, Joel chapter 3, verse 18. And in that day it shall be that living water shall flow from Jerusalem. What is that day? And maybe Zechariah is just, maybe. Okay, so this makes me think that maybe people thought that this temple of Ezekiel is a prophecy that will be fulfilled. Zechariah thought that this was a prophecy that will be fulfilled. Interesting. We'll learn more when we jump into Zechariah. John mentioned a similar river relevant to the eternal state in Revelation, but it isn't the same as this river. The variance between Ezekiel's account of this river and that of John in the Revelation centers on the river's source. God is the source of both rivers, but Ezekiel saw the river issuing from the temple, whereas John saw the river coming from the throne of God and of the Lamb, a temple not existing according to Revelation 21:22. When the man went out to the east with the line in his hand, Ezekiel's unnamed guide followed the course of the river as it flowed out to the east. He followed the river 1,000 cubits. And if we're going with the symbolic meanings here, why does it flow from the temple to the east? He followed the river 1,000 cubits, about 1/3 of a mile or 1/2 a kilometer, from some point, perhaps its origin from the temple. He brought me through the waters. Together with the unnamed guide, Ezekiel went into and through the waters. The river was not something for Ezekiel to simply look at or think about. It was something for him to enter into. The water came up to my ankles. At the measured distance, 1,000 cubits, the water was as deep as Ezekiel's ankles. It wasn't very deep, but Ezekiel was in it as much as he could be, experiencing all the depth the river had at that point. The phrase "the water came up to my ankles" is literally water of ankles. Taylor relates how this led to a bad translation and bad theology. So strange did the phrase seem to the that's 20. What is this? I don't know. Translator, that he virtually translated it and made water of remission, with the result that many early Christian commentators applied the symbolism of the water to the waters of baptism. A warning to both translators and interpreters. Again, he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters. Ezekiel's guide. Okay, so what is the symbolism with the 1,000? What is the symbolism of the temple facing the east, the water flowing to the east? Ezekiel's guide continued eastward with the flow of the river, and he brought Ezekiel with him along the way. This continued for 4 measures of 1,000 cubits total. The water came up to my knees, up to my waist. As Ezekiel continued, the river became deeper at each measuring point, starting at ankle depth, then up to the knees, then his waist. At each point along the way, Ezekiel was in the river as deep as he could be. He didn't artificially sink himself into the river, but his experience matched the actual depth of the river. This rapid increase in depth from a small trickle to a stream to ankle depth to knee depth to waist depth, all in the course of about a mile, is miraculous. We read nothing of other streams leading into this. It is a miraculous and abundant provision. So we're talking about, they're looking at it literally here, right? Why was it necessary to bring Ezekiel through the waters in vision? The purpose was to reveal to him both the size and depth of the river. The trickle, the literal ran out of Ezekiel 47:2, is trickled forth. Oh, okay. We touched on that. Had become a veritable river during the measuring activity of the man in the vision. It was a river that I could not cross, for the water was too deep. The rapid increase of the river's depth and power showed what a mighty river this was. It soon came to the point where the water was over Ezekiel's head, and all he could do was swim. Fundamentally, this shows us the miraculous nature of a real river in a real messianic kingdom to come. Yet, by spiritual analogy, there is a powerful picture of increasing progress and depth in our spiritual life. It illustrates a progression from ankles to knees to waist to depths where one can no longer touch the ground and must swim. God's people read this and feel a call to go deeper. They shouldn't stop until they are swimming, carried along by God's currents, and comfortable in that place. Yeah, you could see it could. I can understand how they thought it could be like baptism. Because you're being submerged in the water, you know? That reminds me of, I just watched this movie, The Pilgrim, The Pilgrim's Promise, was it called? Progress. It's a book, but they turned it into an animated movie, and it was good. I liked it. It's a Christian story. It's a metaphor, and well, I don't want to get into it because it's a sort of a spoiler at the end. But there's a bit at the near the end that reminds me of this.
Along the bank of the river.
Oh wait! What am I doing? Let's continue reading this. We need the ankle depths of walking to be exchanged for the knee depths of praying, and these for the loin depths of perfect purity, and these for the length, depth, breadth, and height of the love of Christ. Spurgeon saw a spiritual analogy between the life of faith and swimming. We start out floating in faith, somewhat passively, just keeping our head up out of the water. We then progress to swimming by faith. How blessedly our friend Mr. Mueller of Bristol swims. What a master swimmer he is. He has had his feet off the bottom many years, and as he swims, he draws along behind him some 2,000 orphan children. Who is Mueller of Bristol? By God's grace, he is saving from the floods of sin, and bringing, we trust, safe to shore. He brought me and returned me to the bank of the river. When it was clear that the water was too deep for Ezekiel, and he could not cross it, Then his guide brought him out of the river and back to the bank. He asked Ezekiel to carefully think about what he saw and experienced. Have you seen this? He said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? Then he brought me and returned me to the bank of the river. What does that mean? Have you seen this? The have you seen this bit is making me feel like it could be symbolic. And he's wondering if Ezekiel is identifying the symbolism. Or it could be speaking literally. What do you guys think? Many trees on one side and the other. Once out of the river, Ezekiel noticed the many trees. They grew along both sides of the river. The deepest valley rift in the world is the Araba, in the Holy Land. The waters of the river will flow east through the Araba into the Dead Sea. When it reaches the sea, its waters are healed. Ezekiel's guide describes the miraculous properties of this water. As the river flowed out from Jerusalem, then down into the Dead Sea, those lifeless waters were healed. There would be a very great multitude of fish in that strange body of water that previously had no life. This can and will be fulfilled both literally in a coming kingdom age and is also a fitting symbol of God's present work through the gospel. There is also an obvious but possibly overlooked point here. God cares about the environment and promises to restore and heal it. Despite the many who worship the creation instead of the Creator, God himself cares about his creation. His salvation and the work of redemption extend to the environment. Its waters are miraculously healed. Rapa normally refers to the healing of a diseased body, but in this case, the miraculous involve neutralizing the baneful chemicals in the water so it becomes fresh. That's your interpretation, because you could also read it as the waters itself were healing. Like the fish weren't dying, you know? Jesus may, or you could look at it as it's not talking about real water or fish at all. Jesus may very well have had this image of Ezekiel in mind when he spoke of the rivers of living water. There is a valid spiritual application of this wonderful image and a literal fulfillment to come. Yet, many commentators unfortunately feel comfortable ignoring any future literal fulfillment of this and see it only as a visionary parable. Why unfortunately? It's just their interpretation. This sea is, I should have expected, right? Because I told you, I prefaced at the beginning that this commentary, it's going to read in a way that it's siding with the millennial theory. I mean, I'm not saying the millennial theory is incorrect. I'm not sure which theory is correct. But so yeah. Yet many commentators unfortunately feel comfortable ignoring any future literal fulfillment of this and see it only as a visionary parable. This sea is the wide world dead in sins and trespasses. These fishers are Christ's apostles and ministers who are called fishers of men, and their preaching compared to fishing. This was the reason why I jumped into this commentary. I wanted to know about the swamps. Its swamps and marshes will not be healed. They will be given over to the salt. There will remain certain areas near the former Dead Sea that will keep their old characteristics. Perhaps this is so that the useful minerals gained from the Dead Sea will still be available from these places. Okay, but what's the symbolic interpretation of that? Preservation of some pockets of saltiness is intentional. Recognizing the economic benefit of the minerals found in and around the Dead Sea, salt, melah, is not only a valuable seasoning and preserving agent. The word functions generically for a wide range of chemicals extracted from the sea. As an example of an overly spiritualized approach to this passage, consider how Clarke thought of the swamps and marshes. A description applicable to the Roman Catholic Church that is both schismatic and heretic from the Church of Jesus Christ, which is built on the foundation of prophets and apostles, Jesus himself being the chief cornerstone. For the Church of Rome, leaving this foundation, is now built on the foundation of councils and traditions and lying miracles, the popes in their succession being its only cornerstones. Okay, so this guy looks like he's not a fan of the Roman Catholic Church. So he's comparing the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, to the swamps and the marshes. What do you guys think about that? Maybe you could look at the swamps and marshes as, but see, it's flowing from the river from the temple. So it wouldn't be, hey, we'll leave some, there will still be people who sin or whatever. It's still stemming from the temple. So I guess I could see their interpretation with the Roman Catholic Church, right? I can see their line of thinking. Okay, so will grow all kinds of trees used for food. Along the sides of the river, there will be remarkable fruit trees with leaves. I guess you could look at the swamps and the marshes as anything that sort of corrupts the message from God, from the temple, where that message becomes muddy and it's not pure and clean and healing. You know? Maybe like the message is corrupted. Anything that does that. Will grow all kinds of trees used for food. Along the sides of the river, there were remarkable fruit trees with leaves that will not wither and fruit that will never fail. In some unknown ways, but that's completely different interpretation from this, right? Because over here, the literal interpretation is that it's a good thing. Here, it's a bad thing. So, very, very different interpretations. Along the sides of the river, there were remarkable fruit trees with leaves that will not wither and fruit that will never fail. And where were these? Where was the marshes, the swamps? But its swamps and marshes will not be healed. They will be given over to salt. Swamps and marshes. I'm assuming that's going to be near the bank. I don't know how it works. I would assume so. Like near the edges would be the swamps and the marshes, because we're leading from water to swampiness to the actual land. I'm thinking, I don't know. But then the trees would be on the land. So the trees would be absorbing the salt from near the swamp areas, I would imagine. So it can't be that bad. I don't know. Again, so many interpretations. This is going to take a lot of further digging into. So along the sides of the river there were remarkable fruit trees with leaves that will not wither and fruit that will never fail. In some unknown way, their leaves will be used for medicine. Matthew Poole had an unfounded and interesting speculation. These trees were likely palmetto trees, whence the balm that healeth, the fruit that feedeth, and juice that refresheth, and allays our thirst. What do you guys think about these trees? I don't know. With this section, I'm feeling I'm leading towards a symbolic meaning. It just gives me that vibe that it's symbolic and not literal. I mean, who's to say if it's literal or not, right? Because how does a symbolic interpretation deal with the rest of the previous chapters? Those seem quite literal to me. So let me know how Ezekiel 40 to 48. How do you guys look at that?
The river will not fail. They will bear fruit every month, and their leaves for medicine.
Thus says the Lord God.
These are the borders by which you shall divide the land as an inheritance among the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions. You shall inherit it equally with one another.
If we're talking about during the millennial reign of Christ, how is this relevant? How is this relevant? I feel like this is only relevant in 2 times. When they first entered the promised land, and now when they're about to rebuild the promised land. So they're getting everything divided again. Why would this be relevant during the promised land? Because, I mean, the followers of God now are not just the 12 tribes. They're people from all walks of life. Why would you split up the inheritance between only the 12 tribes at this point, During the millennial reign of Christ.
And as an inheritance among the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions.
I'm curious what that website is going to say about this, because they've been back in the whole millennial idea. How are they going to interpret this?
You shall inherit it equally with one another, for I raised my hand in an oath to give it to your fathers, and this land shall fall to you as your inheritance. This shall be the border of the land on the north, from the great sea by the road to Hethlon, as one goes to Zedad, Hamath, Berotha, Sibraim, which is between the border of Damascus and the border of Hamath, to Hazar-Hatticon, which is on the border of Haran. Thus the boundary shall be from the sea to Hazar-Enan, the border of Damascus. And as for the northward, it is the border of Hamath. This is the north side. On the east side, you shall mark out the border from between Haran and Damascus, and between Gilead and the land of Israel, along the Jordan and along the eastern side of the sea. This is the east side. The south side, toward the south, shall be from Tamar to the waters of Meribah, by Kadesh, along the brook to the great sea. This is the south side, toward the south. The west side shall be the great sea from the southern boundary until one comes to a point opposite Hamath. This is the west side. Thus you shall divide this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. It shall be that you will divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves, and for the strangers who dwell among you, and who bear children among you. They shall be to you as native-born among the children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel.
And it shall
Thus you shall divide this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. It shall be that you will divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves, and for strangers who dwell among you and who bear children among you, they shall be to you as native born among the children of Israel. So maybe this kind of answers my question, where everybody is in the pot now. They shall be to you as native born among the children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall be that in whatever tribe the stranger dwells, there you shall give him his inheritance. Honestly, I feel like the strangers have the better end of the deal, because what if you, what if you want to have the inheritance from another tribe? Like, dang, they got better land over there. I want that, but no, you were assigned over there. But for the strangers, wherever they live, they get their inheritance. These are borders by which you shall divide the land. This emphasizes that this was not a symbolic or spiritual land. God gave specific borders to mark it. There will be real land that will be given to the real 12 tribes of Israel. These are all 12. Okay. Using the landmarks of the north, east, south, and west, God described the borders of Israel in the period of Ezekiel's temple, a period regarded as a millennial reign of Jesus Messiah. And they're stating that as fact, and it's just their interpretation. From the Great Sea to the road to Hethlon, many landmarks are listed, but we believe that since the geography of this part of the world will be significantly transformed right before this period begins, it is impossible to exactly establish what these places will mark in the coming age. In general, we can say that it is an area somewhat larger than the land Israel occupied in the Old Testament. The description shows that this is not an eternal state. The western boundary of the Great Sea The description shows that this is not the eternal state. The western boundary was the Great Sea. In contrast, the land of God's people in the eternal state will have no sea, since the sea will no longer exist. The repeated commands to divide the land indicate that this is real land, not a spiritual representation. The best way to understand this is that this division of the land is yet to come, but will come in a kingdom period during when the world is ruled in a direct way by Jesus Messiah. The land promised to Israel in this kingdom period will not be for Israelites alone. There will be people from other lands and ethnic groups living there also. By God's command, these were to be treated as native born. Okay. Yeah. What do you guys think? This commentary obviously thinks it's talking about the millennium, but we looked at another website yesterday that laid out the different interpretations. What do you guys think? It's tough. It is tough. Where's 48?
Now these are the names of the tribes. From the northern border along the road to Hethlon, at the entrance of Hamath, to Hazainan, the border of Damascus northward, in the direction of Hamath, there shall be one section for Dan from its east to its west side. By the border of Dan, from the east side to the west, one section for Asher. By the border of Asher, from the east side to the west, one section for Naphtali. By the border of Naphtali, from the east side to the west, one section for Manasseh. By the border of Manasseh, from the east side to the west, one section for Ephraim. By the border of Ephraim, from the east side to the west, one section for Reuben. By the border of Reuben, from the east side to the west, one section for Judah. By the border of Judah, from the east side to the west, shall be the district which you shall set apart, 25,000 cubits in width, and in length the same as one of the other portions, from the east side to the west, with the sanctuary in the center. The district that you shall set apart for the Lord shall be 25,000 cubits in length and 10,000 in width. To these, to the priests, the holy district shall belong. On the north, 25,000 cubits in length, on the west, 10,000 in width, on the east, 10,000 in width, and on the south, 25,000 in length.
The sanctuary of the Lord shall be in the center. It shall be for the priests of the sons of Zadok, who are sanctified, who have kept my charge, who did not go astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. And this district of land that is set apart shall be to them a thing most holy, by the border of the Levites. Opposite the border of the priests, the Levites shall have an area 25,000 cubits in length and 10,000 in width. Its entire length shall be 25,000, and its width 10,000. And they shall not sell or exchange any of it. They may not alienate this best part of the land, for it is holy to the Lord. The 5,000 cubits in width that remain along the edge of the 25,000 shall be for general use by the city, for dwellings and common land. And the city shall be in the center. These shall be its measurements. The north side, 4,500 cubits, the south side, 4,500, the east side, 4,500, and the west side, 4,500.
The common land of the city shall be, to the north, 250 cubits, to the south, 250, to the east, 250, and to the west, 250. The rest of the length, alongside the district of the holy section, shall be 10,000 cubits to the east and 10,000 to the west. It shall be adjacent to the district of the holy section, and its produce shall be food for the workers of the city. The workers of the city, from all the tribes of Israel, shall cultivate it. The entire district shall be 25,000 cubits by 25,000 cubits, 4 square. You shall set apart the holy district with the property of the city. The rest shall belong to the prince, on one side and on the other of the holy district, and of the city's property, next to the 25,000 cubits of the holy district, as far as the eastern border, and westward next to the 25,000 as far as the western border, adjacent to the tribal portions. It shall belong to the prince. It shall be the holy district, and the sanctuary of the temple shall be in the center. Moreover, apart from the possession of the Levites and the possession of the city which are in the midst of what belongs to the prince, the area between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin shall belong to the prince. As for the rest of the tribes, from the east side to the west, Benjamin shall have one section. By the border of Benjamin, from the east side to the west, Simeon shall have one section. By the border of Simeon, from the east side to the west, Issachar shall have one section. By the border of Issachar, from the east side to the west, Zebulun shall have one section. By the border of Zebulun, from the east side to the west, Gad shall have one section. By the border of Gad, on the south side, toward the south, the border shall be from Tamar to the waters of Meribah by Kadesh, along the brook to the great sea. This is the land which you shall divide by lot as an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. And these are their portions, says the Lord God. These are the exits of the city. On the north side, measuring 4,500 cubits, the gates of the city shall be named after the tribes of Israel. The 3 gates northward, 1 gate for Reuben, 1 gate for Judah, and 1 gate for Levi. On the east side, 4,500 cubits, 3 gates, 1 gate for Joseph, 1 gate for Benjamin, and 1 gate for Dan. On the south side, measuring 4,500 cubits, 3 gates, 1 gate for Simeon, 1 gate for Issachar, and 1 gate for Zebulun. On the west side, 4,500 cubits with their 3 gates, 1 gate for Gad, 1 gate for Asher, and 1 gate for Naphtali.
All the way around shall be 18,000 cubits. And the name of the city from that day shall be, The Lord is there.
That's a good name. Much of what my Bible's got to say. What is the Lord is there? What is that in the original text? The designated name for the city from that day is the Lord is there. This return of the Lord and the regathering of his people is predicted by Ezekiel. The Lord was forced to depart from the city and temple because of the wickedness of Israelites. But here Ezekiel foresees the return of God in all his glory to his people, his temple, and his land. The name of this ideal city is the Lord is there. This is a fitting climax not only for the book of Ezekiel, but to John's revelation and to the Bible itself. It shows that a reversal will occur during the course of history, whereas Ezekiel had seen the Lord withdrawing from his temple because of the people's wickedness. John saw him return to a new temple to live among the people forever. Likewise, whereas fellowship with God has been cut off through the sin in Eden, it is made permanent in the New Jerusalem. There's a strong hope we can look forward to with great anticipation. Right now, we may sometimes feel distant from God, perhaps alone and confused, and wondering whether he even knows who we are. The assurance of Scripture is that someday we will no longer wonder where God is. We will be with him forever. And that is an encouraging thought. Yeah, the Lord is there. What a name for a temple. Like, that name will just give you comfort. You know? Yahweh Shammah. The Lord is there. Ezekiel has been really interesting. Really interesting. With all his visions from the cherubim to this temple to now this city. Ezekiel's been really interesting. A lot of stuff to dig into that we still need to dig into because it's a lot, right? It's a lot. A lot of different interpretations we're seeing, a lot to study. So, I hope you guys enjoyed Ezekiel. I really did. And that's it. Chapter 48, that's the end of Ezekiel. Tomorrow we're going to be jumping into the book of Daniel. And I know Daniel's got a lot of prophecy as well. So that's more stuff we get to look into. So I hope you guys enjoyed Ezekiel. We're done with it today. Tomorrow we'll jump into the book of Daniel. And hope you guys are ready for it. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. That's going to be it for today. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.